Trump is very, comes from TV. He's very ratings driven, and the polls are his ratings, and the ratings are great right now. And I think what he's actually done is he has kind of changed the way he campaigns, in part as a reaction to how far he is ahead. He's doing fewer rallies, fewer sort of on the ground, less on the ground campaigning, because he's so far ahead, and he's not doing the debates. And by the way, the Des Moines Register also asked Iowa Republicans, well, if Trump doesn't take part in any debates before the caucuses on January 15th, would that bother you? And they say, nope. His supporters said no, and 57% of all Republicans said no. So my feeling is Trump is going to pursue this course until it doesn't work anymore.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here today with Chief Political Correspondent Byron York. And Byron, the third Republican primary debate was on Thursday, and you wrote that we seem to have reached the stage where perhaps these debates have run their course, becoming a little bit obsolete. What do you mean about that?
Well, I think I called it a dead end.
A dead end, yes.
And I think that's what has happened. The purpose of the debates, since Donald Trump has emerged as such a huge front runner, 43, 45 points ahead right now of the second place finisher, Ron DeSantis, and 48, 50 points ahead of Nikki Haley, and way more than that ahead of everybody else. Since Trump has emerged as that, basically the debates have been an effort to identify the challenger to Trump. Okay, and we've already proven that Asa Hutchinson is not going to be that challenger, and Doug Burgum is not going to be that challenger. And to step on a few toes here, Chris Christie is not going to be that challenger, Vivek Ramaswamy is not going to be that challenger, and Tim Scott is not going to be that challenger. So I think what we actually saw in the Miami debate was Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley really cement their positions as these runners-up. I mean, so what you have is, I used to call it a two-man race between Trump and DeSantis. Well, it's not a two-man race. I mean, one guy's 45 points ahead of the other.
Right.
It's a one-man race with two backups. So DeSantis and Haley have to compete to be the main backup, because God knows there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen in the next 6 months as far as Trump is concerned. He might not keep that lead. And so one of them could be the nominee.
So Nikki Haley, there's been a lot of talk about, her surging or her becoming, one of the only non-Trump viable candidates.
Yeah.
But unlike Ron DeSantis, she isn't really a natural successor to the sort of Donald Trump ideology, whatever you want to call it, coalition. If Trump were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, and it is a race between DeSantis and Haley, does Haley have the ability to speak to the Republican Party of 2023?
Well, first of all, I mean, the Republican Party of 2023 is still a bit divided. I mean, there are a bunch of old-style Republicans who will tell you they'd really like a return to normalcy. That's the word they use a lot. And by that, I think they mean before the sort of Donald Trump show came and essentially took over the party in 2015. They were not all that unhappy with the party of George W. Bush, if they're old enough for that. John McCain. So they wouldn't, and those are real Republicans too. So Nikki Haley represents a real point of view. Clearly, DeSantis is Trumpier, and if you looked at the Des Moines Register poll, and you asked people who support DeSantis, what if DeSantis didn't make it, who would you go to? 41% of them said they go to Trump. So just because DeSantis is running against Trump doesn't mean that all of his supporters are against Trump. So I think DeSantis occupies a Trumpier and probably stronger position than Nikki Haley does if Trump were somehow out of the picture and it were DeSantis versus Haley contest.
And finally, Trump hasn't showed up for any of these debates. That's part of why they feel, as you wrote, low stakes compared to what you might expect of a debate. Does he have any incentive to participate in one before we get to January?
Not right now. Trump is comes from TV. He's very ratings driven, and the polls are his ratings, and the ratings are great right now. And I think what he's actually done is he has kind of changed the way he campaigns, in part as a reaction to how far he is ahead. He's doing fewer rallies, fewer sort of on the ground, less on the ground campaigning, because he's so far ahead and he's not doing the debates. And by the way, the Des Moines Register also asked Iowa Republicans, well, if Trump doesn't take part in any debates before the caucuses on January 15th, would that bother you? And they say, nope. His supporters said no, and 57% of all Republicans said no. So my feeling is Trump is going to pursue this course until it doesn't work anymore. And if his lead begins to go down, then you might see him change. But the big thing to look for is there'll be a debate in Iowa before the Iowa caucuses, January 15. So the question is, will he take part in that? I think that's the next debate he might think about being in.
Well, Byron, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Byron by signing up for his newsletter, Byron York's Daily Memo, at washingtonexaminer.com.